remember that moment in the Avengers Endgame movie when it looked like everything was just over? Thanos' army is covering the entire battlefield, and Captain America is standing there alone. His shield is cracked in half, his body is just bruised, and he's just completely outnumbered, right? But it's that moment where he tightens the strap on his broken shield, even though he knows that he's about to face an enemy greater than he is. Have you ever felt like that? Like you're standing in the middle of a battle you didn't ask for, and the enemy just keeps multiplying wave after wave. You're trying to hold the line, trying to keep your faith up, but it feels like you're fighting outnumbered and outmatched. But then, out of nowhere, something shifts. There's this quiet moment where Cap hears a voice in his earpiece that says, "On your left." He turns and suddenly a portal opens across the battlefield, and the hero armies are there to help come from every direction. Reinforcements he didn't know were coming. The entire fight changes in seconds. Cap thought he was alone, but he wasn't. There was a whole army already on the way, and that right there is exactly what spiritual battles are like. Have you ever felt like that? Maybe in a financial battle where you have a financial wall that just won't move. Or maybe it's a diagnosis that really just shook your peace. Maybe it's a situation that feels completely out of your control. If that's you right now, pause and just take a deep breath, because I want to remind you of something powerful today. The Lord himself will fight for you. And even when you can't see what he's doing, even when it feels like you're outnumbered or even looks that way, God has already positioned victory on your side. God is on your left and he's by your side. There's something that we forget sometimes, that every visible battle we face has an invisible side. Psalm 44:3 says, "For they did not get the land by their own sword, nor did their own arm save them, but by your right hand and your arm and the light of your countenance," all in caps, that's God, right? "Because you favored them." Pause right there for a second. They didn't win because they were strong. They won because God favored them. It wasn't their sword and it wasn't their strategy, but it was God's right hand, his strength, his presence, his favor was fighting for them. And the same God who fought for Israel fights for you today. I love this story because it paints such a vivid picture of what spiritual warfare really looks like. Listen to this. Elisha's servant wakes up one morning, walks outside, and sees the hills completely surrounded by enemy troops. He panics. Rightfully so, right? He runs back inside yelling, "What are we going to do?" But Elisha doesn't flinch. He says, "Don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Can you imagine how crazy that sounded, right? The servant's probably thinking, "Elisha, I can count. There's 2 of us and hundreds of them." But then Elisha prays one simple prayer. He says, "Lord, open his eyes so that he may see." And suddenly, the servant's eyes were opened to the reality of what was there all along. He looks up and sees the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire surrounding Elisha. There was an army fighting for them that they couldn't see. Maybe that's where you are right now. You've been staring at the problem. You've been counting the odds and you've been watching the numbers stack up against you. But what if you're missing what's really going on behind the scenes? What if right now God's already positioned angels around your situation? What if his hand is already moving, his strategy already unfolding, even when you can't see it yet? You may feel surrounded, but the truth is you're surrounded by God's power. You may just have to pray the same prayer. "Lord, open my eyes." Now, here's another story that shows the same principle in action. King Jehoshaphat and his army are facing 3 nations at once. Outnumbered again, right? There's no chance of winning on their own. The people are terrified, right? But instead of panicking, they pray. Jehoshaphat stands before the people and says, "We don't know what to do, but our eyes are on him," right? And God answers, "Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, For the battle is not yours, but God's. That right there, that's a word for somebody today. The battle is not yours, it's God's. So what does Jehoshaphat do next? He does something completely unexpected. He puts the worshipers, the singers and praisers and musicians, out in front of the army. Can you imagine being one of them? You're holding a tambourine or a harp or something, instead of a sword, marching toward the enemy, saying, "Praise the Lord, for his mercy endures forever." But as they begin to worship, something supernatural happens. The Lord sets ambushes against the enemy. The enemy armies turn against each other, and by the time Judah reaches the battlefield, the fight is already over. They didn't have to even lift a weapon. They didn't have to strategize. God fought for them. And that's the message. When you worship in the middle of your battle, you're not just saying, you're not just playing music, you're activating your own victory, because worship isn't a warm-up for a fight. Worship is the fight. Like that song, "This Is How I Fight My Battles," right? God still fights battles today. I read a story recently about a woman who was in a legal battle over her home. Everything looked hopeless. The city had ruled against her. The paperwork was already finalized, and she was days away from losing everything. But instead of falling apart, she started to pray. She said, "God, I can't fix this on my own. I can't change their minds, but I trust you to fight for me." The very next day, she got a call. A council member had unexpectedly stepped in, reviewed her case, and overturned the decision. Yeah, she said, "I know this wasn't man's doing. This was the hand of God. He fought this battle for me and gave me peace in the middle of it." I love that. So what does it look like to let God fight for you? It doesn't mean you do nothing, right? But it does mean that you stop striving and start standing. First of all, you've got to keep your eyes on him. Like the servant, when he was focused on the enemy, he saw fear. But when Elisha prayed, his eyes were opened. You can't win spiritual battles with natural sight. You need spiritual vision. The second thing you've got to do is position yourself in peace. Just like Jehoshaphat didn't rush into battle, he positioned himself in worship. Sometimes your victory starts when you stop running in circles and start standing still. Like that verse, "Be still and know that I am God," right? Another thing you've got to do is begin speaking the victory before you even see the victory. Before Judah saw a single enemy fall, they were already singing praises. Your words are seeds. What you speak in the middle of battle determines what grows after it. And another thing you've got to do is remember the past victories. Psalm 44 is literally a song of remembrance. The Israelites were reminding themselves, he did it before and he'll do it again. When you remember what God has already brought you through, your faith grows for what he's about to do next. Next thing you've got to do is expect the unseen. I know that's the hardest part, right? Because our human instinct says, if I can't see it, maybe nothing's happening. But faith says, if I can't see it, it's probably because God is still building it. He's still working it. The miracle may not be visible yet, but that doesn't mean it's not in motion. This is key. You're not fighting for victory. You're fighting from victory. Because when Jesus went to the cross, he didn't just save us. He defeated every power of darkness that could ever come against us. So when you stand in your battle today, you're not begging to win. You're enforcing a win that's already been declared. That is why you can have peace when the world says to panic. That's why you can rest when the enemy tries to make you run. And that's why you can worship when it looks impossible, because the battle doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the Lord. So whatever battle you're facing right now, whatever your situation that feels impossible, whatever fear has been whispering that you're outnumbered, lift your eyes. There are chariots of fire around you. There are angels standing guard. There is a God whose right hand still fights for his people. You're not forgotten, you're not unprotected, and you're not alone. Stand firm, worship loud, trust, because when you can't see it, the Lord will fight your battles for you. If this message encouraged you today, be sure to like, Maybe comment a battle that you're facing so that I can stand in prayer with you, because where two or more are gathered together, there he is also, right? And a cord of three strands is not easily broken. So if I can stand in prayer with you over some of the battles you're facing, I would love to do so. Leave them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. If you want another video to build your faith, be sure to watch this one next. And thank you so much for watching today. Have a blessed week.